Welcome. Thank you for coming and take on this interview. It's such a pleasure and privilege to me. And thank you everybody else who are here to join the live interview. So first of all, I just want to let you know how this interview is going to go. First subject will be general nutrition. The second subject, simple breakdown of carbs, fats, and proteins. Third subject, energy balance. Number 4, be good to yourself. Number 5, Justina is going to recommend some amazing products that will benefit your health and detoxification. And the last block will be the question and answers. So, my name is Ágnes, and I have been a certified kinetics teacher for 12 years and a transformational coach for 4 years. Putting the two together, I call myself a body transformation coach. And I teach body toning classes, live online classes, as well as weight loss workshops and seminars. What we are looking at is the vibrational sources of weight gain rather than me giving you ideas about what to eat, what to drink, and so on. However, I have so many questions and requests for diet plans and just in general more information about that side as well. So I know that this interview is going to be very useful to you. And Justina and I, go back to 15 years ago. We were at the time, we met in England. I moved to England a few years before that. And at that time, we were both doing something completely different, like literally nothing to do with health, fitness, or anything. Justina was managing a very successful business in Maidenhead, a snooker and pool club, where I actually applied to work after moving to England, so I can learn English and find new friends and be in a great community. So actually this is how we met. And then we very quickly became friends, and then we both have become kinetics teachers, and now both of our lives are going actually on quite similar paths. And so, Justina.
Well, thank you, first of all, Ágnes, for inviting me along for this interview today. And Ágnes has given you a lot of information about me already. So I am living in Ireland, in Southern Ireland. Ágnes said that we met in the UK. And but since then, we've both flown away and got ourselves on similar paths. As she said, we're very similar energies, I think, and we boost each other very nicely. So it's a blessing to be invited to work with you, Ágnes, today. I'm 50 years old. I just putting that out there because I've just celebrated my 50th birthday. So I'm so excited to be on this path in I'm calling it the Hawaii 5-0 years, because I'm just going to be like dancing all the way through these next 10 years till I get to 60. And that's the plan. So I don't know the sort of age range that I'm talking to, but, you know, obviously we're going to apply as much as you can to yourself that I'm going to go through today, and, you know, hopefully you'll enjoy it. And with that, I'll pass you back to Ágnes and we can begin.
Thank you. So let's just then jump in. So as I said, your first subject is general nutrition. And I believe what you will be talking about in this subject, in this section, is what actually nutrition is and why is it worth to at least have a basic understanding about it. I love looking up definitions, and I always do that. I always find it very interesting. So I actually did look up the definitions of nutrition, and what I found is the process of providing or obtaining the food necessary for health and growth, as well as the branch of science that deals with nutrients and nutrition, particularly in humans. So that, I believe, is the most general definition that we can get. I don't know if this definition can differ with different sub branches, but what really is, tell me what is it that you can tell us, Justina, about what nutrition is, and why is it good to know something about it?
Well, you encompassed that beautifully, and what I'm going to do now is just try and break that down just a little bit more. So you're absolutely right in that nutrition is about the food that you put into your body, which has a chemical process in your body, and then from that energy is created, and you'll know these things called kilocalories, or shortened to calories. So when we put food into our body, we are creating a chemical process, creating energy, and that energy helps us to move. Okay, it also helps us to keep still, and just our heart function, liver function, all the internal organs obviously need these kilocalories in order to be alive. Okay, so that's the first thing about nutrition. So nutrition is an intake of energy for an expenditure of energy, okay, which we can use. The second thing would be that nutrition can be broken down into various forms. You will have heard of carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and vitamins and minerals, and also water. Water is actually, I would suggest, is the most important of those nutritional pieces. That's the word. Because it actually, we're 60 to 70% of our body should be water. And all of the chemical processes that I've just described from the intake of food will take those reactions. They all happen in a fluid environment. So it's very important that we include water in nutrition. Okay, so we have carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, which are called macronutrients, and then we have vitamins, minerals, which are called micronutrients. Macro meaning that we have a lot of them, and micro meaning that we only need a few of these in comparison to carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Okay, so I'm going to carry on into, hopefully that's, you know, a general breakdown of what we're looking at.
Yes,
so obviously
super.
We have, you know, different foods have different levels of carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals. Okay, so that's the nutritional side of it, and then the energy side of it being nutrition as in physically what we take into our body changes chemically in our body and creates the energy that we need to live.
How does our bodies use carbs, fats, and proteins? And this is actually one of those subjects that I am right now most drawn to, because I hear it from people that they cut things off their diet completely. And I personally think it can actually be quite dangerous. I mean, unless if you really have understanding about what is it that it's okay to completely cut or not. Of course, when we are talking about toxins, and then we just say, I'm going to do a detox and deprive my body from these toxins, the body is going to get into a shock first. Of course, just the same kind of thing as when you first introduce these unnatural things to your body. But then when you take them away, again, it's going to go into a little bit of a shock. Then it's going to adjust. And then it's, since you deprived your body from it, then it's not going to be craving for it. And yes, these are the things that are not natural for the body, like toxins or preservatives or sugar or caffeine.
Yeah.
That really, really works. But I believe that when we are talking about fats and carbs, it is not quite like that. We do need them.
No,
We just,
right.
I believe, need to know what form, what way, if we cut them, which one to cut. So thank you.
Okay. Right. I think I can answer all of that. What I'm going to start with, is just to say that generally nutritional requirements for individuals are not all exactly the same. Okay. It depends on various different things. Now, those factors can be age, gender, your body composition. whether you have a high activity rate or not, and also stress levels, can also vary your nutritional requirements generally. So I'll just go to say that in some nutrition, some of the nutrients that we receive from food are stored in our body, and some of the nutrition that we receive from food is not stored in our body. Okay, so let's just talk about that for a moment. So if, for example, you eat something which is very sugary, I'm just choosing sugar, which is actually a carbohydrate. Okay, so we'll use a carbohydrate. If you use something like that, then that is transferred into your blood. Okay, and when this is known as your blood sugar level. Now, anybody who knows anything about people who suffer with diabetes know that insulin works against the blood sugar levels in your body. So our blood sugar levels are going up and down all the time, depending on what we eat. Okay, and this is actually, and also we have fats that are stored in our body. Now, these things will be used for energy. And also we store some vitamins in our body as well that we take in, like vitamin A, vitamin E, and vitamin D. So if we take these vitamins in through a glass of orange juice, for example, then they will be stored in our body. There's other things like minerals that are also stored in our body. Iron is stored in our liver, and calcium, an intake of calcium, like from broccoli, for example, is stored in our bones. Fingernails, calcium, okay? But other things are not stored in our body, and those are the things that we have to put into our body constantly, regularly, let's say. You don't have to be constantly eating or constantly drinking, but regularly. And they are things like protein, some proteins, vitamin B12, we don't store that in our body, and some minerals like sodium and potassium, and also chlorine. We don't store those things in our bodies. Okay, so that will tell you straight away that there are some things that we have to eat as an essential. We have to put them into our body because our body doesn't store them and our body doesn't make it. Okay, so we'll come to essential and non-essential amino acids later on. I'm now going to talk about what is a healthy diet. So please, when I say the word diet, don't think that I'm talking about restricting anything or, suddenly doing something crazy, like just eating cabbage soup, for example, which I know was a little bit of a rage back in the 80s. But there are plenty of different types of diet on the market. And it's not a one size fits all because each of our bodies has different nutritional and dietary requirements. I want you to think in terms of what is a healthy diet for you out of the information that I'm bringing to you now. So, as Ágnes mentioned earlier, a diet should increase your long-term health. It should include and contain all the essential nutrients that we need. And also it should provide energy enough to be able to work out or do some training or even just go to work and come back again and still have enough that you can get up the stairs and go to bed, do all the jobs that you need in the meantime. Because as I said right at the very beginning, the nutrition that you put in is converted into energy in your body, which you then use. So therefore, the food that you put in has to be able to sustain you, okay? So a well-balanced diet would include nuts and seeds, as well as meat and dairy. And if you were an eat everything person, then that's fine, eat everything, but in certain balance. The word balance means the right amount. It also means a mixture. Okay, so think about that as well to yourself. You know, do you always eat the same food over and over and over? And when I say the same food, it may be the same type of food, in which means you're not getting the broad range of nutrition that we really need. And I'm going to go into that in a little more depth in a moment. I want to tell you about the different, there's, well, 4 or 5, I like to say 4 different groups of food. Okay, so we have grains, we have fruit and vegetables, which I tend to pack in as one. Some people split them up. And then there's protein and there's dairy. Okay, so these are the different groups of food that you can have. So I'm just making sure I'm reading from my notes here to make sure I don't miss anything out. So in the grains section, you can imagine there is, of course, bread, maize, rice, and also you would include in that white bread, brown bread, any kind of bread. And these are all come from grains. We've also got things like quinoa, and of course we have chia seed. So anything that's a seed and is called a grain, and you can have those whole grain or not. Now, the difference between a whole grain means that the essential nutritional, the little nut in the middle of the rice, has been removed. Okay, it basically means if it's not whole grain, then it has been processed in some way. And so that means that a lot of the nutritional value, up to 70% of the nutritional value of that grain, can be lost if it's processed. And also, you also lose fiber if it's not a whole grain. And again, I'm going to come into that in a moment when I start talking about carbs a bit more in depth. Okay. Vegetables and fruit, obviously we need to be having a variety of different colors and different types of these items. Dark green vegetables, nice starchy beans and peas. And then in the fruit, again, a variety of different colors. Going from, you know, your red apple to your green apple, they give you different nutritional values. Bananas, oranges, and so on, melons, watermelons, etc. We've got such an abundance of fabulous fruits, and they all give you loads and loads of vitamins as well. And then we have our protein. So our protein will be found in meat and poultry, and also for vegetarians or vegans, if you're worried about not getting protein, that's ridiculous, because protein comes mainly from beans, which is great, and also, you know, soya products, nuts and seeds all contain vast amount of proteins. And if you think about what the meat is eating, say your cow or your chicken or something, they're not eating meat, they're eating vegetables, and they only make that protein in their body, which passes on to us. So if you miss out the meat and go straight for the vegetable, you're not going to be lacking in protein, don't worry. And there's plenty of vegan bodybuilders out there that will tell you exactly that thing, okay? And then moving on, then we have our dairy. So dairy is milk, cheese, yogurt, although you can get these in non-dairy as well now, made out of nuts, and particularly coconut, cashew, almonds and oats as well. And if you have to be careful when you're choosing products as to, you know, whether you're choosing a naturally low fat product or something that has been made low fat. And bear in mind that if something has been made to be low fat, they've often taken out the sugars that are in the product and put something synthetic in there to make it taste nice, because otherwise it doesn't taste nice. So, you know, be careful, because that will be a processed item that you're that you may be buying. So think about what is naturally low fat, as opposed to picking up the muffins that say this is gluten-free and low fat, and you think, oh yeah, I can eat loads of those. But no, you can't, because that affects the nutritional value of the product. Okay, so just because it says it's low fat doesn't mean it's necessarily good for you, which is why I would always suggest that you go for the naturally good products. say good again, as opposed to the ones that aren't so good for you. Now, in amongst this range of products, from that, we get all of our starches and fiber and everything that we need from our grains. We also get magnesium and iron and thionine and niacin, which are 2 essential amino acids. We get from our vegetables, we get our folates, we get fiber, potassium, vitamins A, C, and the antioxidants. In our fruit, again, we get in vitamin C mainly, we get potassium, we get fiber as well, and our folates. And then in protein, we tends to come more heavily towards iron. Vitamin B proteins will be found there. Vitamin B vitamins are found in protein, and also zinc and magnesium. So again, might be ringing a bell. These things are all good for bones, and protein is your growing thing. This is the building block of the body, the proteins. And in dairy, you'll find calcium, again, protein in animal dairy, and also vitamins A and D, and also the essential riboflavin. So that is your groups of food. Okay, now we haven't gone into specifics. So now I'm going to go into a few guidelines, a simple breakdown. Okay, just basically I've tried to put some bullet points down. So if you've got yourself a pen now, jot these down. I'll try not to say them too quickly. A simple overview of a healthy diet. So first of all, you should eat for health. Choose nutrient-dense, lower fat foods, and particularly those that are naturally low in fat, such as most fruit and vegetables, and cut back on foods that contain sugar and salt. So that's a little thing. Sugar and salt, when they're added to a product, we don't need them, okay? But things that naturally have sugar and salt in them, like fruit, for example, fructose is a sugar molecule, and that's fine, okay, because our bodies metabolize that. However, added salt, or saccharides as they're called, will not be metabolized in your body. Therefore, they will not be used. Think that they're useless, so why eat them? The second one, little point number 2, don't diet. Using the word diet, right? Yeah, don't diet in the hijacked way that a word is used, okay? We all have a diet. I'm going to talk in a moment about yo-yo dieting and the process of that, okay? Eat healthy carbohydrates, point number 3. So we're going to go into carbohydrates a little bit more in a moment. I just want you to get these bullet points down. So we're going to eat complex carbohydrates, okay? They're more filling, they're more satisfying, okay? A lot of people say cut out the carbs. Keto, for example, is a very popular type of diet at the moment, where you send your body into what's called ketosis by cutting out the carbohydrates and upping your fat and protein intake. Now, again, it works for some, and that's great, but it doesn't work for all, okay? It's the same with all of these diet types. Avoid high fat fillings and toppings. I mean, do we need to be told that? Yes, we do, because we love those, don't they? They taste the best. However, don't have it every day. Again, little, but not often. Eat regularly. So don't avoid your breakfast. Now, if you can't face a solid breakfast like myself, have something liquid that is nutritionally dense. Okay. And I have myself in the morning, I would tend to have a shaken drink, a cup of coffee. That usually goes down very well for me. And I will add into that various powders or a banana or avocado. If I'm getting my NutriBullet out, I have some other things that just need to be shaken in water or nut milk, and they can be drunk straight down, easy peasy. And that breaks the fast that you've had from overnight. And that will, you know, get your body ready and moving again. Try to keep your breakfast nice and low as far as glycemic index is concerned. So the amount of sugars that are going to be taken into your blood, you want to try and keep that on a nice level and not be spiking. And again, we're going to come into that in a moment. Always eat breakfast, I mentioned. So consider your sleep as your overnight fast. And I'm sure that you will have heard of various ways of fasting that you can diet, lose weight, detox, and so on and so forth. But again, you know, it's really up to you what fits for you. And I'm sure that Ágnes and myself, of course, are happy to discuss your individual needs when it comes to you deciding if you want to try one of these fasting diets.
Absolutely.
Make small and gradual changes. Very, very important. Yeah, good. Make small, gradual changes. Don't go cutting everything out and suddenly going on, you know, I'm couch to 5K, so on and so forth. Okay, these things are not healthy for your body in the long term. Make yourself time to eat. Now, saying that, sometimes you get caught on the hoof, don't you? You know, where you're like, oh, I've got to eat something, and you quickly ram it down. You might be driving along or, you know, walking along the street, or, you know, and you're eating something. That in itself, again, is not healthy in the long term. If you sit down to eat, your body is in the right shape for your digestive tract to work optimally. Okay. If you're standing up, your digestive tract is not quite in the right position and it won't work at its optimum rate. So bear that in mind. Sit at least to have something to eat. And I'm sure that you'll find that the more you enjoy your food, the more you're going to want to sit down to it and you look forward to it. Think about what it is that you're going to make for your meal, or if you're prepping for the week, then, you know, enjoy the thought, oh, this is going to be lovely. And now, even just thinking about food, my mouth is watering. Is your mouth watering? You know, you're thinking about something lovely that you want to eat, your mouth starts to water. And that is part of all of your digestive system. This is lubricating. We're getting ready for food. So when you rush into this, quickly grab a sandwich, don't think about it, stuff it down your face. Your body's not ready. So part of the process is getting yourself ready for food. Think about it. Think about how it's going to taste. Get your mouth watering, then eat it. And enjoy it. And try to take as much time as you can. Because, and again, you know, you don't want to be upsetting your stomach. You want it to work at its optimum level, especially if you're putting the optimum in. You could give yourself a chance just by sitting and eating. Give yourself a little bit of time to eat.
That's so great. That is so great. I'm really going to take that on myself. I don't have patience to eat. I love food. I absolutely love food. I love cooking, and I'm a very good cook as well. And I love eating too. But when I am doing something during my day, or just busy, or not even busy, just know all the things that I want to get done during the day, I just don't have patience to eat. And what you just said, that when our mouth waters, and that's actually already part of it. Like I never actually thought about it. And that created a more positive context for me to give it a nice way once I do it. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Good, you're welcome. Just a couple more tips. After you work out, so I don't know what your levels of workout might be. It might be a 15-minute brisk stroll. It might be that you work out an hour or 2 or 3 times a week. It might be that you'll work out every day. but please be sure that when you have done some kind of workout, that you eat something at least within 2 hours of having that workout. Now, the reason for that is because whilst you're working out, you're burning your energy levels, okay? Now, that will either be in the form of carbohydrates or fats and glucose, sometimes protein, depending on how lean you are. But we don't want to be getting rid of protein. We want to be using fats and carbohydrates for our workout. But you need to replenish, and the best thing to replenish with is protein, because protein is the building block. So think nuts, a handful of nuts after you've worked out. Just get them into your body. You might want to carry them in the car. I know I do. I have a little container that has just some fruit and nuts, dried fruit and nuts. They'll sit in the car for a week. I'll eat them a handful at a time, and then I just fill that back up and put it back in the car. I know I've always got something there that I'm going to put into my body, which is high in protein and good fats. Okay, so just think about that as well. If you're working out, don't starve yourself afterwards. Your body needs to build, okay? It's burned the energy. It needs to now build, and the building block is protein. So go to protein. You could even go for one of my personal favorites, chocolate milk. Chocolate milk is an excellent way of protein, especially if it's a nut milk, like a chocolate almond milk, for example. And if you have a thing of that and you drink that, then you're putting dairy protein if it's a regular milk, or you're putting nut protein into your body if it's a nut milk. And of course, chocolate makes it taste nice. Now, you might be a chocolate person, you might not, but I know that I like chocolate milk, and that will be one of my go-to things. So it doesn't all have to be bad, does it? It doesn't have to be like, oh, I've got to eat, you know, something that I might not enjoy. Find something that you enjoy, and we're going to be going through these items very shortly. Is that okay for you now, Agnes? Good. So I was thinking about just talking very quickly next about yo-yo dieting. Have you heard of that?
Indeed.
Okay.
I think it's not just that we have heard of that, but it's just such a problem for many.
Yeah. It is. And I know my mother was horrendous. She would lose weight and then she would put it all back on and more. Okay. Now my mother's passed away, so I can't tell her now what I know. But when I was a kid, that used to happen all the time. She used to be constantly, seemed to be on this crazy thing, and she would lose weight. And then she would get to her ideal weight, and then it would all come back on and more. And it was very strange. And I never understood that, but now I do. And I'm going to try and explain it to you so that you can avoid it. Okay. So if you just think for a moment about the psychology of dieting, okay? I'm going to say dieting because this is the thing that we don't want to do, yeah? We want to have a nice regular eating pattern with balanced, healthy diet. So what is dieting? So dieting, first of all, I'm just going to go in a big circle. You get negative feelings about yourself. And then you kick into some rigid diet, and then you lose control of that because it's too rigid, and then you binge because you're craving, because you've been cutting out things that you shouldn't eat, and then you have negative feelings about yourself because you've just had a binge on muffins or whatever, and then you get the desire for a better body. And then you have negative feelings about yourself because you want a better body. So therefore you're thinking negatively about yourself. So you go on to a rigid diet, and then you lose control, and it goes around and around and around. Okay. Now let's just think about how that works. So if you choose to go on a rigid diet, which is not what we're, obviously this is not what we're saying you should do, because I'm going to tell you what can happen. So you choose to restrict your calorie intake. Okay, so whether it's just I'm cutting out carbs, that will dramatically reduce your calorific intake. Okay, so let's take an example of somebody who is usually, I'll say a man who usually eats 3,000 calories a day, okay, which is above the average recommended daily amount by about 500 calories. So for a man, it's about 2,500 calories, and for a woman, approximately 2,000, okay, just keeping it in round numbers. Each individual is obviously different, okay, it gets more complicated. So let's say this 3,000 calorie person decides to reduce the intake of their calories by 1,000 to take them to 2,000 calories, okay? So in week 1, they'll lose loads, okay? Because the amount of calories that they usually take has been reduced, and yet they're still burning the same amount of energy. So therefore, energy out is more than energy in, so therefore you lose weight, fat loss, okay? Weight loss, I should say. So say they lose about 7 pounds, and then on the second week, still at 2,000 calories, they lose another 5 pounds. They think this is going great. Third week, started to only lose 2 pounds now. And then on the fourth week, haven't lost anything. Still eating 2,000 calories a day. So what has happened there? I'll tell you what's happened. The body has got used to working on 2,000 calories. It's bloody clever, this body that you have, okay? It really, really clever. Now, think about if you then restrict your calories further, your body's going to get used to working on that amount of calories. We should never, ever restrict our calorific rate under 1,000 calories because it takes your brain nearly that many calories to work. Okay, so it's a lot. It takes 500 and something odd calories for your brain to work a day. It's just your brain. So imagine if somebody is on 300 calories a day, you know, eventually the brain is going to start to break down, not function properly because it can't. Your body cells will start to break down, and you'll start to use your protein and inner tissues as energy because you're not getting enough energy. So please, please, please avoid restrictive calorific diets because this is really not very good. What we really want to do is get a nice level recommended daily allowance for you, for your height and your weight, and restrict it by only a few percent. Lose a little bit of weight, and then restrict it a little bit more until you get to the recommended daily allowance. Now, the recommended daily allowance is different for men and women, as I say, but it's broadly 2,000 calories for women and 2,500 for men. Now, we're not all calorie counters, and I know that I'm not.
Can I clarify something? So reduce it by some percentage and do that for a while and reduce it a little bit more and again a little bit more. This applies if somebody is taking in more calories than the recommended amount. If somebody is overeating, let's say, that's when you would apply this.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to clarify.
Yes, yes, yes. If you are an athlete, you're not going to be looking at weight loss. You work for different reasons. You have I myself, because I'm a fitness instructor, I take around 2,500 calories in a day, and I'm not putting on any weight. The reason why, because my energy for the work that I do burns off all the calories that I'm taking in. Okay. So, but if I sat on the couch and ate 2,500 calories and just potted around the house or, you know, didn't do any exercise at all, I'd very soon be getting bigger, you know, because I'm not burning off, I'm not using the energy that I'm putting into my body, and therefore it gets stored. And so what happens when fat gets stored in your body, or when this energy or calories get stored in your body, is that you start to get bigger. Okay, your tissue, your fat cells get full. Okay, now our fat cells, we don't get less and more fat cells in our body. We've all got the same amount of fat cells about the age of 17 or 18 years old. Whatever number of fat cells we had in our body at that time, that's how many fat cells we're going to have for the rest of our life. Unless you go for liposuction, in which case they get sucked out. But guess what? Your body puts them back because it's your DNA. Okay, so my number of fat cells might be less than Agnes's, for example, or hers might be less than mine. Yours, sorry, the other way around. But we both have very small fat cells or big fat cells. When you have big fat cells, i.e. they're like blown up, you are bigger. You don't gain fat cells, okay? Understand that, okay? So when we talk about burning fat, we're not removing fat cells from your body. That's impossible unless you get them physically sucked out. But then, as I say, your body will metabolize more fat cells to put them back, but hopefully they'll be smaller because you'll be eating properly and so on, and you've got to put yourself through all that rubbish to, you know, get to the right size, so you think. So, you know, it's like, think about that. You've got 5 fingers, okay? You don't lose a finger, okay? Your finger just gets bigger, okay? So that's what's happening in your body with fat cells, okay? Now, there's a lot of confusion when people are selling stuff to do with, you know, weight loss and so on. When they say it burns fat, it depends what you're doing, because sometimes you might be burning carbs. So you're not burning fat at all, you're burning carbohydrates and glucose. It's all very complicated, which is the reason why we're here. I'm going to try and break it down for you. So is it okay now if I go into carbohydrates, proteins, and fats as an individual set? Are you happy with this now, Ágnes?
Yes, and also at the same time, I'm looking at how much time we have left. And it's 3 o'clock right now. And of course, that was a bit of a delay, but I also don't want to finish too much later. And what we could do, how long, how much extra time, how much time do you still need, Justina?
10 minutes.
Oh, only? Oh, that's really not much. Okay, including the other subjects as well, that's still left?
I think so, because I have been...
In that case, I believe that would be fine.
Yeah.
So, that would be fine. I just thought that maybe an extra 40 minutes, since there is more subjects. Okay, I say absolutely, go ahead. Great. Okay. Super. I'm getting such valuable information. I so appreciate it. So I do want more.
Super. So going back to our original general definition, we have carbs, proteins, fats, vitamins and minerals. Now, I've told you how they all work together in the body. Now we're going to talk about them as individuals. So carbohydrates. So you have low glycemic index carbohydrates and high glycemic carbohydrates. So the glycemic index means how quickly the carbohydrate is used in your body and converts into sugar in your blood. Okay, now this range was worked out from 0 to 100 on all foods. Okay, so all foods will have, if you look it up, a glycemic index, and all it means is how quickly are the sugars from this product absorbed into your body. If it's absorbed quickly, like refined breads, for example, will be absorbed very quickly into your body, then it will be given a high glycemic index number, which would be a number which is over 70. So 70 or more is a high, can I say GI? And then you have moderate GIs, which is between 56 and 69. And then the low GI, obviously from 0, I don't think there's anything that's 0 to 55, and they're low glycemic index. Okay, so which are good, which are bad? Is that what we really want to know? They're called simple and complex, okay, or low and high. So low GI would be considered to be simple carbohydrates, and then therefore they're absorbed nice and steadily into your body and don't spike your bloodstream. Therefore, insulin doesn't have to be sent out to fight it. And then you have your high GI, which are absorbed quickly into the blood, and they might be called complex or processed carbohydrates. And people call them bad carbohydrates. Okay, so good and bad, high and low. Okay, so we want low carbohydrates or moderate carbohydrates. We have fiber, which is part of carbohydrates, and we have our glycemic index, which I mentioned. So I really would be happy to go into glycemic index much further, but it's really a subject in itself, because obviously it's based on all the different foods and how they're measured. But you can always look it up to see, is this high or low? And you want low or moderate at least. Okay, anything above 70 should be avoided on the glycemic index. Fiber, we have soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. So that means that the soluble, I mentioned, insoluble fiber is the outer shell of your whole grains, and these are found in whole foods. And soluble fibers will tend to be the inner body, or things like beans and broccoli. They have all excellent soluble fibers: prunes, apples, oats, and citrus. And so those are your fibers. We need both of these fibers in our diet, because these fibers help with our digestion, as well as feeding the enzymes in our gut, our flora, gut flora, or gut fungi. We have protein next. So with protein, you should be really eating about 20% of your body weight in protein. That's what we made up of. So if you cut yourself into a fifth of you is protein. Okay. So protein is absolutely essential. Do not avoid protein at all. In fact, protein means first in Latin. It's the first and the most needed because it's the building block of the body. Okay, so do not avoid proteins at any cost. And it doesn't matter if you have too much protein in your diet, all you will do is have whey that is high in protein. It's okay. We don't store protein in our body. It gets used and flushed through us, but we need it. Okay. Protein can also be used, it's essential, I should say, for regulating the meta pathways to our brain. And also it's good for tissue repair, any kind of repair. It's the foundation of our bodies, as I say, and it's essential for growth. Can be used for energy if you don't have any carbohydrates or fats or enough in your body, but really it's the very last thing that will be used for protein, will be used for energy. Okay. Adrenaline and insulin are also protein based, and of course we need insulin in our body. Comes from our pancreas. It's triggered by sugar in the body, blood, in the glycemic index of your foods that I was talking about earlier. So if you think about, you want your glycemic index to be a slow roll or a wave, as opposed to a roller coaster. Because if you're going spiking up high sugar levels in your blood, you're going to drop down the other side. That increases cravings. Then you want to come back up, and because you've just put the Mars bar in your mouth or whatever because you were dying for it, that spikes you again. Then you drop down the other side. It's like a roller coaster. So smooth waves. Try and keep it level when it comes to the amount of sugars in your blood. Proteins are optimal again for fluid balance and also transporting nutrients through the body, and they also carry oxygen and they regulate blood clotting. Okay, so proteins cannot be avoided. Do not avoid them. Moving on, those 20 amino acids. Now we're getting really serious. I'm just going to break it down easy. 12 of them are non-essential, which means that we actually can produce them in our body, but 8 of them are essential. Okay, now that means that we have to get them from our food, because our body doesn't metabolize these nutrients. Now, the nutrients themselves, if you want a list of them, I'll be happy to give them to you on the group. But know that the essential nutrients need to be taken in via our food. And as far as that is concerned, then we're getting into those food groups that we spoke about earlier. Try and include all of those food groups in your diet every day. Do not avoid one of them. And that way you will have a good chance of getting everything in that you need. Moving on quickly to fats. Fats, yeah, should we, shouldn't we? Yes, we should.
Well, I
yes,
think
we
so,
definitely
yes,
should.
because it's such a demonized word, isn't it? And in fact, it's really,
a demon, exactly. So yeah, fats, waxes and oils are all they're all organic compounds that come from plants. The reason why we have fats in our diets is because of the cell membranes are mainly formed out of fats. We have a synthesis of our hormones is fat-based as well. Fat protects our vital organs from damage when we're moving. Fat is a fuel source, particularly during low intensity workouts. So if you're doing something like Kalinetics, for example, that's a fat burning method of exercise, as opposed to sprinting, where you will be using carbohydrate burn for that. Okay. Also, fat stores energy. Okay, so we need energy, because if we didn't store energy, we'd have to be constantly putting everything in all the time to be able to move. So of course we store energy in our body, because sometimes we stop eating and stop drinking and we can still move. And where that's stored is in our fat cells. Now, if we have the wrong types of fats, then we have things like trans fats, which are essentially hydrogenated fats. That's fats that have been flushed with hydrogen. Things like margarine, biscuits, cakes, crackers, some takeaway foods, pies, pastries, it all makes sense. And also, I will say, some low-fat processed foods have high hydrogenated fats in them. Now, high hydrogenated fats, trans fats, they're called as well, are bad for us. They lower our HDLs and they rise our LDLs, and that is really not very good for us. We want to have good system and clear systems in our body, and trans fats, let's think of it as blocking those lines up. Okay, so because they literally they stick in your body because they've been processed, they're messed around with fats. So what we want to do is get rid of those kind of fats and look at what fats we can actually eat. So
I'm still smiling at messed around with fats. I'm going to officially steal this expression from you, Justina.
Yeah, I'm a very much a natural person. I will eat naturally as best I can. It's sometimes hard to, completely avoid some kind of process in foods, but eat clean as best you can. And if you are getting something which is more processed, like even a can of baked beans, for example, which you might think that's not processed, but yes, it is to some degree. So the less processed, the better. But when you're looking at things like, I don't know, pork sausages, for example, ultra processed, cakes, of course, they're processed because it's flour and sugar, and it's literally processed whilst you're making it. So, technically that, those kind of fats that are in margarines, substitute butters, will have hydrogenated or trans fats in them. So try and avoid a margarine. But what you can do instead is have oils from like olive oils and flaxseed oils, generally unsaturated. We need unsaturated and saturated fats as well. Now, everything has got both, but they tend to be called unsaturated or saturated depending on how much of each they've got. So that's vegetable oil will generally be unsaturated fats, and a saturated fat would be butter, would be a good example of a saturated fat. And that's usually that saturated fats are from an animal source, and unsaturated fats will come from a plant source. Okay, so it's an easy way to tell the difference between the two. As it comes from an animal, it's probably a saturated fat. If it hasn't, then it's called unsaturated fat. Now, it just depends on how many prongs of glycerin it's got, but we won't go into that. Just think as well that at room temperature, if your oil is solid, then it tends to be called a fat. And if it's liquid, then it's an oil. Okay. Now, unsaturated fats will be liquid at room temperature. Okay. Saturated fats will be solid at room temperature. Okay. Now, I've just thrown in an oxymoron there because coconut oil is not from an animal, but it is a saturated fat. Okay, so because it's solid at room temperature and it comes from a coconut. So there's your oxymoron. And as I said, you know, everything is slightly a little bit more complicated, but I'll try and give you a general overview. So nice and easy. If it's room temperature and it's hard, then it's a saturated fat. And if it's liquid, it's unsaturated. Okay. Now, we have to have these fats in our bodies, so feel free to have all of those that you like, up to about 50 to 70% of your energy comes from fat in a light to moderate workout. Okay, so think about that. Light, moderate workout will burn fat as opposed to carbs. Okay, which is great, you know, especially if you're on a weight loss program. Omega-3s and omega-6s, these are essential. Now, this means that we cannot get them from our own bodies. We have to get them from our food. Omega-3 fatty acids tend to come from oily fish, but if you don't eat fish, don't worry, because you can also get them from like free-range eggs. And if you don't eat free-range eggs, don't worry. Eat walnuts, eat flax, think like that. Chia seeds, omega-3s, brilliant. Okay, so don't worry if you're not a meat eater or a fish eater, then you can still get plenty of omega-3 from your food. However, it may be something that you want to supplement into your diet. And supplements is something I'm going to talk about in just 2 seconds after I've covered omega-6. Omega-6, this is also essential. Now, these come from things like sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, and sesame seeds. Omega-6 doesn't come from animals, okay? Only from plants, okay? And if you're getting an oil, please get the best. Try to get something that is cold pressed, unprocessed. Okay, it's the same with your food generally. I think cold press means that it's not had its nutrients devalued by the processing method that they've used. Okay, so cold pressed always best. Unprocessed or unrefined, you might see that word as well, unrefined is what you're going for to get the best nutritional value out of your food. So on that note, I just want to say, please look after yourself, and I'm going to quickly finish off. Use the knowledge, please, that we've shared with you today. I hope you've taken lots of notes. I'm sure that you'll be onto Ágnes with any further questions that you have. Use this knowledge. And if I just say to you, eat nutritionally well without starving yourself. it's important to get things like the pulses, the beans and leafy greens inside you, because that will fill you up. So you won't feel hungry when you're eating these hollow foods, foods that have zero energy for you, but high calorific value. I'm going to use a chocolate bar, okay? That's a treat. It's not a meal, okay? Because there's what's called empty calories, which means that you've got all the calories and none of the goodness for you. So think about having full calories, yes? Full fat milk if you have it, yes. Yes, full fat yogurt if you eat yogurt, yeah? Go for it, because the natural fats, the more naturally you can eat, the better your body is going to react and process it, the better the energy is going to be. And drink lots of water. Water is essential.
Absolutely love what you just said.
Okay.
Absolutely love this. This is something that I teach as well, or sometimes we move on the screen. This is also so nicely matched with what I teach as well. And, you know, it's not just that people can ask me questions, but this video will be shared, and anybody, whoever comes to my weight loss workshop, I will recommend to watch this video. That's how valuable I believe this is. But I didn't mean to interrupt you, because I know you have not finished yet. You have got some, I just think, thank you. We wanted to say something to this last subject, which I interrupted, about be good to yourself. Please feel free to finish. Or I don't know if you were just at the end of that.
Nearly.
Maybe. Then I give you back the word.
Yeah, so be good to yourself. And on that, you know, when you look at your own diet, you know, it may be a good idea to just take a diary and write down what you eat for a week, and don't beat yourself up about it, but use it for information. So to see where, you know, where you could be able to make some good healthy tweaks to your body. And it may be that you need even to take a supplement, because there may be a food that you just can't stand to eat, but you know you have to have it. So therefore, that's where a very good supplement would be very good. And I'm all for supplements, because, you know, I don't believe that that the food that we're eating today is as nutritionally dense as it used to be even 10 years ago. Buying organic or growing your own is definitely the way to go. And even so, you know, sometimes we just can't eat, you know, 2 punnets of blueberries to get that amount of vitamins A and C into your body that you need. You know, it's just impossible some days. So a good targeted vitamin supplement rather than a general supplement is a good idea. So analyze your own diet, have a look and see what you're missing. Can you replace it with food, or do you need to get yourself a supplement? I do have various products. You mentioned earlier, Agnes, that I use and I recommend, and I'd be happy for any of you to join my customer database on that front, and I'd be happy to discuss your needs and recommend products for you on analysis as we would discuss. Now, as a little incentive and a thank you for listening to me for all this time, I would like you to give Agnes your email, name, date of birth and address. If you would like to go onto my customer database, she'll pass that on to me, and I will give you a welcome voucher as well. If you join my database, you don't have to buy anything. We can just have a chat and a discuss, and you can decide what you want to do. But if you do want to pass those details through to Agnes, I would happily put you onto my database, send you a voucher, and then give you a call, and we give each other a ring. You would have my number and my email address once you're on my database anyway. I'm fully contactable.
Yeah, thank you for that. And you also mentioned that you have a newsletter. So what we're going to do is, I took a screenshot So I know who were on this meeting, but also I'm just going to, hold on, wait, now sound is coming. Yeah, so I'm going to, if you send me a link for where people can sign up to your newsletter, then I will publish that link and send it to all the individuals who were personally here, as well as in the Facebook Live who were commenting.
I can tell it to you now. It's very easy.
Is it easy? So guys, then if you wanted to write it, then...
It's Justina, Justina, dot Ringana, RINGANA.com.
Yeah, cool.
Scroll down to the bottom of that page, and then you can put your email address in to sign up for my newsletter.
Fantastic. Great, great, great. Super. And another thing that I haven't mentioned is that you have prepared a couple of diet plans, which people can, the 2-week diet plans, one vegetarian and one non-vegetarian. So this is where actually this whole idea started from, that many people were requesting and asking if I did have diet plans, and I said I do not, but I did want to have a couple of options available for people who come to my programs, to do either to my weight loss workshop or seminar, or to my Kalanetics classes. Those people will get these diet plans. But if you are not doing any of my programs at the moment, and you would like to have a diet plan, then just out of this interview, I'm going to send you that. I will put the link into the comments where you can just quickly sign up or to get these diet plans. Okay, it's free, and I will only use your email one time when I reply to you and send you the diet plans. Okay, so you can do that as well. So I will still post the link that you mentioned, Justina, as well as the link where you can register for the diet plans, and I quickly will send them out to you. And I do recommend, I have tried the products that Justina was talking about, and what I just want to say is that when I did, I'm not very at home at the products yet, but just, what are those called? The little bags that I put on in water, which had 3 different things written on it: balance, detox.
Yes, antiox, balance, and cleansing.
What are they? It's powder.
Yes.
You would just put into water or juice, I believe. So now they are so colorful that they look like they must taste quite nice. And so I opened one and I put it into water, and when I saw the color it turned into, I was ready to gulp it with my nose held, because it just had that color as if you mixed up
purple and green.
Brown and definitely a lot of green stuff, which can taste not very nice. And I think it was even the detox one. So I was like, oh,
it's
no.
A balance. That's the balancing
pack. Is it the balance? Anyway, but I looked at the color and I thought, whoa, I made such a mistake. Put it into water, and I even put it into a lot of water. So I was ready to gulp it down like that. And guys, it tasted so nice. So that never happened before, that actually kind of products that I'm taking actually taste nice.
I'm just going to disappear from the screen, and I shall be back one moment. You carry on for a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the antiox packs, pack A and pack B here, and there's also a pack C, but unfortunately that's in my studio at the moment and not in my house. My apologies for that. But packs A, B, and C. So antiox is literally a sachet. You rip this off. This is completely fresh, plant-based. It's mostly fruit inside here, and it has all the antioxidants that you need for your body. So that is really nice, and it kind of tastes kind of fruity. You can see all the goodies that it's got in the back of it. Fantastic product. And then balancing, the one that Ágnes said, and it looks this color, it is green, and you know, this one has
it looks a bit muddy in the water. It looked a bit muddy.
Yes. This is the sachet, and again, you just mix these with about 300 mils or more of water or milk, and you get a month's worth here in a box for one a day. And it's completely fresh. It's got a use by date on it as well. And like these, for example, need to be used by February. And so you get about 6 months used by, because it's a fresh product. And there's no preservatives or fillers or anything in these. Everything that's in here is going to be used by your body. But that's the balancing pack. And balancing is mostly vegetables and algae. And so that's really good for balancing your digestive levels. We were talking about, you know, greens being really good for your digestion, and of course they are. And the cleansing pack, which is pack C, that's all the fibers that you need. And if you've had a low fiber day, then you just take one of these packs, and then you know that you're getting all the fibers that you need. I was big talking about omega-3 and omega-6, which I said, you know, can be difficult to put into your diet. And one of my favorite supplements I take daily is this Beyond Omega. So you can see I have a little tin here, and inside here these beautiful, now purple is my favorite color, so I don't know if you can see these little pills. And you take 3 of those pills a day, and that ensures that I'm getting the optimum amount of omega-3 and omega-6 into my diet. And it's interesting because if you actually have too much omega-3, I think it is, that can work an opposite way on your body.
I did hear about that as well, that we really need to watch between the 3 and the 6. Yeah,
that's right. So, you know, getting the right amount of balance and the right amount of is, you know, I know that I'm going to get that. I take those 3 times a day. So
well, thank you for giving us a little taster of that as well. I do support the idea of supplements, because one thing is that what you mentioned as well, that we don't necessarily like all the foods that we would need to eat to get everything in. We don't necessarily have the time. And I like to take things in liquid form, because also, actually, most of the people who are right here now, they have seen my works, but I talk a lot about resistance and how, depending on our mental state and emotional state, we can make it really difficult for the stomach and for the body to absorb all these goodies that we take in. So when you have this in liquid form, it's just drains down it straight into your blood, and I really, really like the idea. So I personally take supplements. As I said, this is how I have peace of mind in the morning, and I'm not used to nice tasting ones, but I have my green juice every morning.
As you get into your nutrition more, then you think, oh yeah, this is really good for me, like turmeric, for example, or ginger or cinnamon and nutmeg, and you're really going for it for your nutritional values, is that you end up with lots of things, you know, that you've got to have a half a teaspoon of this and a half teaspoon of that, and put this in there and get in there. And that's one of the great thing about supplements, is that you know that you've got it just in that capsule, the variety. Just again, using the balancing, for example, it's not just kale, you know, it's not just spirulina, it's not just, you know, there's a very broad range of greens in there. And so that makes sure that you're getting the broad, and again, the broad range is what you want. Try not to limit yourself.
Please contact me or Justina if you have any questions. If about nutrition, please contact Justina. You will have the link to the newsletter, and and the link for looking at your site with the products as well. So thank you again, guys. Thank you, Justina. It was such a pleasure. And
thank you, Ágnes, and thank you everybody for having me on here today.